Good morning. It is my pleasure to kind of kick off the day. Thank you, Meg. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, MIT. It's a real pleasure to be here. My field is women, peace, and security. Actually, I was at Lincoln Lab several times when I was doing a lot of space security work, and it's good to be back on working on women, peace, and security. And when I talk about that, it's usually to an audience of mostly men who have no idea what women, peace, and security is. In fact, they think it's a DEI program or a gender studies program. It's not. It's a security studies program. And I have to start out, give a little context of why it's even important. I don't think I need to do that today, but I am going to give you a few of the statistics that I use to get the point across. And these are statistics garnered from longitudinal research over decades. And very simply, in countries where gender inequality is high, twice as likely to be a fragile state, 3 times as likely to be more autocratic, less effective, and more corrupt, 1.5 times more violent and unstable. Gender equality and national security go together, and you are a big part of that. I will mention that in all the indexes that measure gender equality and gender inequality, the U.S. is ranked, in one in particular, 43 out of 146. In all of them, the United States is down in the past several years. So here we're looking at challenges to women's meaningful participation in security affairs, specifically combat. And I will kind of double down on what Meg said. Women are additive. Women are additive assets. So what we want to look at is what are the challenges that prevent the maximizing of women as additive assets. And a lot of research has shown, and I kind of give you a little asterisk there, when I talk in front of skeptical audiences, I always say research has shown. Because otherwise I get, well, Joan, that's just your opinion. No, it's not opinion, it's fact. There are 2 basic ways that challenges present themselves: structure and culture. Structural challenges are those that deal with policy and law. And going back to court challenges that were addressed by individuals like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, we've dealt in the United States, relatively speaking, we are further ahead in addressing structural challenges than in many countries. There are still some to be faced, and you've got great panelists who are going to take those on today and tomorrow. But it's the cultural challenges that can be especially challenged. And here we get to things, where are we at? The questions, a lot of the questions I deal with are, where are we at? We've done integration, but how are we doing about inclusion? And there's a big difference between the two. Integration is numbers, and numbers are important. But inclusion means that women are not just accepted, but they are encouraged and provided the same kind of training, equipment, and benefits that really allow the maximization of their input. There's a great Pixar 8-minute video called Pearl, P-U-R-L, that I encourage you to take a look at if you want to kind of see the difference between integration and inclusion. And for inclusion to really occur, a lot of research has shown it takes 3 different things. The first is diverse gender representation. Again, going back to numbers matter. A former student of mine, an Air Force cyber warrior, wrote an article for Military Times a couple years ago where she pointed out that women in cyber, there is a huge workforce deficit in cyber. And yet, most of the women who go into that field are immediately channeled not into the warfighting aspect, but to the administrative track, where they're responsible for keeping your email safe. That's not what they wanted to do. That's not why they got involved, and they leave, furthering this workforce gap. What she advocated in her article was gender anonymous applications for positions, where you can get real meritocracy, real merit-based decisions being made. And interestingly enough, this idea of not being able to identify gender in applications goes back to orchestras, where orchestras were all male, and they found that if they did auditions behind a curtain where you couldn't see shoes, that all of a sudden the gender balance started to work out. So maybe we need to think about those kind of organizational, structural changes that get around the cultural biases. In 2020, a study was done that showed that women are 28% more likely to leave military service after one or two tours. Why is that? That's the kind of issues that will be addressed over the course of the symposium. What can be done to make it easier and more attractive and more feasible for women to stay in? And women have to be able and willing to participate. And this goes down to, there are three basic traits that men and women rely on for hiring, retention, and promotion in workforce issues. And those are competency, confidence, and mentorship. But they work entirely differently for men and for women. Women don't have to be competent. They have to be hyper-competent, but be very careful about how you show it. Because if you're too competent, you can be seen as threatening. Competency matters. Training and equipment. We all know that. We're here to talk about that as well. And it's interesting, sometimes we see changes in, things like uniforms that are intended to be gender blind. Well, gender blind means you're not going to pay attention to biological and physical differences between men and women, and it's not gender blind when only one has to buy new uniforms, incurring that additional cost. Competency. Meg talked about the Rangers and women being Rangers. I think, that's certainly one of the areas where women have proven their competency. In that first Ranger course, 380 men began and 94 completed the course. 17 women began and 2 completed the course. That means 2 women did better than 286 men. Always a fun fact to have at hand. Women, those numbers are only going to increase when, again, things like uniforms, training capabilities, diet, physiological differences are considered. So competence. Confidence. Well, we all have to be confident, and I think every woman in this room, every man and woman in this room is confident. But women have to be careful how they show it. Men can be confident, be seen as assertive. Women become overbearing. So this is another kind of fine line that women shouldn't have to, but do have to address. And mentoring, helping each other, these kind of opportunities to work together. There's a very interesting book out by a friend of mine, Michaela McKenzie, who wrote a book about women Olympic athletes or professional athletes called Power, Money, and Respect. And what she talks about is it was only because the women worked together, they were all facing common challenges, that they were able to work together and overcome those challenges. And I see many of those same opportunities and challenges among this group. Working together is so important. Mentorship. Women are far less likely to get the kind of mentorship that they need to get ahead. And mentorship, I always point out, mentorship doesn't mean somebody's going to help you get to the next rung because they're going to tell you when an opportunity arises. The key to mentorship is every organization has their rules, but there's also a set of unwritten rules that you need to know about to get ahead. And I always give the example of my type A personality son, who's an attorney. His first job at a big law firm in New York, he was the real eager beaver, and one of the partners, several levels above him, sent him an email asking him a question. And he responded with pages of information, did everything that could have come up, and he sent it, and he sent it to his immediate boss as well. And his immediate boss came in and said, "John, Never send a partner an email longer than 5 sentences. They don't have time to read it, and it will just annoy them. If no one had told him, he would have gone on making the same mistake over and over and over and had no idea why. Mentorship is so important, and we need to take the time to mentor other individuals, other women. A lot of what's going on, too, is the need to overcome myths and assumption, and that means data, data, data. I encourage all of you who are in positions to gather gender disaggregated data to do so. I had a student in one of my Naval War College classes, a Navy captain, and the bell he rang every class, we could be talking China, globalization, economics. His bell was, women should not be pilots because when it comes time for deployment, they get pregnant so they don't have to go. Gosh, has anybody ever heard that before? And it was said so often, I decided I was going to make it my mission in life to shut that down. And I found a study that had been done in the Marines, and it divided up individuals unavailable for deployment because of personal or professional injuries. Now, or medical conditions, excuse me. So for women, personal would have been getting pregnant, and for men, it was things like motorcycle accidents, bar fights. And guess who was most unable to be available for deployment? Men, because of personal medical conditions. I took that study, I put it in front of him and said, I don't want to hear about this ever again. And he shut up, and then went on to teach leadership at the academy. So areas of need. This is a little self-serving since I'm a teacher, but education, education, education. One of the soapboxes that I've been on for years is the need to integrate the Women, Peace, and Security framework into professional military education. And that is because right now, again, studies have shown, anecdotal evidence has shown, that the difference between integration and inclusion of women in different units comes down to only one factor: leadership. If the leader is receptive, the women will be included. If the leader is not receptive, the leader will accept integration. So we need to get the value of gender equality and women's additive value, and it comes in so many different ways, included right off the bat in every educational institution. And I get a lot of, well, you know, what do you want to do? Take out China so that we can put in women? And that just shows me that individual does not understand what we're talking about. So we need to do ground up education. We need further policy work. And there are lots of individuals here who I know are going to talk about those policy challenges, how we address them, and not only having policies in place, but have them enforced. Have people accountable for enforcement. And funding. Funding, gender bias. Women are underrepresented in studies regarding health. We know about the trivialization of women's physical complaints. We know about discrimination in the awarding of research grants dealing with women. Now, if you really want a statistic, this is the one I published that got a lot of people upset. If you believe that you can tell the priorities of an organization by their budget, in 2019, the Defense Department, for the first time, set aside a specific pot of money for implementation of the Women, Peace, and Security framework. $8 million. $8 million, that's chump change. That was in the same year that Military Times stated that $84 million a year is spent annually by DoD on Viagra and Viagra-like products. We need to get the kind of funding that will really allow for amplification of women's very important voices. And women don't just need a seat at the table, they need a voice at the table. So I'm a teacher. All I have to do is talk, and I love giving these kind of presentations. But you're the doers. You're out there doing it. Watching that slideshow, I was getting choked up. It is an honor to work with all of you. Thank you, and have a great symposium.